Breaking news, the headline today is Supreme Court strikes down affirmative action. I'm your host, Blake Burrow, and today we'll be covering the issue relating on affirmative action. On June 29th, 2023, the United States Supreme Court ended the policy of affirmative action, a system that has been around since the early 1960s. This process favors specific ethnic groups that have been disadvantaged or discriminated against and admits them at a higher rate compared to other ethnic groups. The Supreme Court decided that selective admissions weighing heavily on race is unconstitutional and violates the Equal Protection Clause under the 14th Amendment, which states that governmental body may not deny people of equal protection and that all individuals, regardless of race, must be treated in an equal manner. According to the Supreme Court, this chart depicts admission rates for Harvard by race/ethnicity for the top decile, or top 10% of students. The lowest admission rate per group belongs to Asian Americans at 12.7%. The next group is whites at 15.3%. There's then Hispanics at 31.3%, and finally African Americans had the highest admission rate at 56.1%. An even more shocking statistic is that the admission rates at Harvard for African Americans in the fourth decile, the Supreme Court found that the 40% of African Americans had a 12.8% chance of getting admitted to Harvard, this number being higher than the top 10% admittance rate for Asian Americans, theirs being at 12.7%. This blatant marginalization of specific ethnic groups not only violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, but handicaps underperforming groups of people by admitting them to prestigious universities despite them being underqualified for the specific degree they may be trying to acquire. Next, we have the party stances. The two major political parties of America have contrasting views on the overturning of affirmative action. The Democratic Party voiced their opinion on their ruling, with Vice President Kamala Harris stating that it is a step backward for our nation and that it will make it more difficult for students with unrepresented backgrounds to fulfill their full potential. On the other hand, the Republican Party rejoiced at this overturning. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy celebrated as students will be able to compete on equal standards and individual merit. These two representatives illustrate the opposing opinions as shown in this chart. This chart represents the contrasting opinions of the Democratic and Republican Party, showing that in 1991, Democratic approval for affirmative action was at 67%, while the Republican Party was at 55%, while in 2023, Democratic approval for affirmative action was at a high of 80%, while the Republican Party was at a low of 25%. Democrats wish to provide opportunities for students on a race basis, suggesting that underprivileged minorities should be accepted into college at a higher rate, even though they may be underqualified compared to other races, while Republicans wish for equal opportunities for all, despite the specific backgrounds each student may have. Moving right along to the impact that the ending of affirmative action had on the United States, the ending of affirmative action sparked immediate reactions from both the Democratic and Republican Party, as stated before. Democrats quickly spoke out against how the ending of affirmative action would limit opportunities for the underprivileged, as shown in this picture. Republicans, on the other hand, turned to defend the decision by the Supreme Court with the 14th Amendment and the Equal Protection Clause. And finally, my prediction on affirmative action. As it has just been repealed, there are few studies on the impact of the ending of it, but in theory, there should be more qualified and intelligent people in universities around the U.S. because of the equal acceptance rates based on academics and not race. I don't believe this issue will intensify in further years because, one, the Supreme Court has a conservative majority, which is going to rule in favor of the Equal Protection Clause, and two, there isn't much ground to stand on when it comes to discrimination on specific races because of the Equal Protection Clause and the inability to decide on admissions based on race.